The year was 2157, and humanity's reach into the stars had finally brought it face to face with an alien species. The Aegis, a state-of-the-art research vessel equipped with cutting-edge technology, floated silently in the vast expanse of space near the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. Its mission? To make first contact with the enigmatic Vailith, a race shrouded in mystery despite decades of observation from afar. Dr. Liam Carter stood at the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the swirling nebula outside. As one of the ship's lead xenobiologists, he had spent years preparing for this moment. Yet nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. The Vailith were known for their bioluminescent bodies and telepathic communication, traits that made them both fascinating and intimidating. They rarely interacted with other species, preferring solitude over diplomacy. But recent signals suggested they might be ready to open dialogue, perhaps out of necessity rather than curiosity. "Dr. Carter," came a voice over the intercom. It was Captain Ria Morales, her tone clipped and professional as always. "We've received confirmation. Their scout ship is approaching. Prepare for landing." Liam nodded to himself, though no one could see him. He adjusted his lab coat and headed toward the docking bay, where the rest of the team waited nervously. Among them were Lieutenant Mara Klein, head of security, whose sharp gaze never missed a detail, and Dr. Priya Patel, an astrophysicist who had been instrumental in decoding the Vailith's initial transmissions. Everyone wore expressions ranging from excitement to apprehension. This was history in the making, but history often came with risks. As the Vailith scout ship emerged from the void, the room fell silent. It was sleek and organic looking, like something grown rather than built. Its surface shimmered with faint, pulsating lights, almost as if the ship itself were alive. When it docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing two figures cloaked in soft, glowing tendrils. Their forms were humanoid but elongated, with skin that shifted colors like liquid rainbows. One stepped forward cautiously, its movements slow and deliberate. "Welcome," Captain Morales began, her words translated into a series of light pulses by the universal translator device strapped to her wrist. The Vailith responded with their own pattern of flashes, which the machine interpreted as a polite acknowledgement. So far, so good. But then everything changed. Without warning, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed as the crew scrambled to understand what was happening. On the monitors, the second Vailith figure suddenly collapsed inside their ship, clutching its side. A loud metallic groan echoed through the docking bay. Their scout ship was destabilizing. Within seconds, it lurched violently, breaking free from the docking clamps and careening into the Aegis outer hull. Chaos erupted. Emergency protocols kicked in, sealing off sections of the ship to prevent decompression. Smoke filled the air as damage reports flooded in. Through the haze, Liam saw movement, a lone figure stumbling out of the wreckage. It was the remaining Vailith, injured and disoriented. But instead of retreating or attacking, she staggered directly toward Liam. Before anyone could react, she threw herself at him, her glowing tendrils wrapping tightly around his arms. Her body trembled, and her bioluminescence flickered erratically. Then something extraordinary happened. Images flooded Liam's mind. Flashes of destruction, fleeing crowds, and a looming shadow that seemed to swallow entire worlds. He gasped, overwhelmed by the intensity of the emotions pouring into him. Fear, despair, and a desperate plea for help. "What's going on?" demanded Lieutenant Klein, raising her weapon cautiously. "Step away from it, Dr. Carter." "No," Liam shouted back, surprising even himself. "She's not attacking me. She's scared." Captain Morales hesitated, her hand hovering over her communicator. "Explain yourself, Doctor." "She's trying to communicate," Liam said, his voice steadying as he focused on the being clinging to him. Her grip loosened slightly, and her luminescence dimmed, as though exhausted. "These aren't random images. They're memories. Something terrible has happened to her people. The room grew quiet as the gravity of the situation sank in. Here was a member of an advanced alien species, reduced to tears, and seeking refuge in a human stranger. Whatever had driven her to this point must have been catastrophic. For now, hostility seemed unlikely. Her behavior was too vulnerable, too raw. "We need to help her," Liam continued firmly. "If we turn her away, or worse, harm her, we may lose our only chance to understand what's coming." Captain Morales exchanged a glance with Lieutenant Klein before nodding reluctantly. "Fine, but she stays under constant surveillance. And you, Dr. Carter, will take full responsibility for her care." Liam didn't hesitate. "Understood." As the others dispersed to assess the damage, Liam gently guided the trembling Violet woman toward the medical bay. Her weight leaned heavily against him, and he could feel the faint hum of energy radiating from her body. Though they were separated by countless light years of evolution, there was an undeniable connection between them, a shared spark of life amidst the cold vastness of space. For the first time since stepping aboard the Aegis, Liam felt truly alive, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything, for better or worse. The medical bay of the Aegis was a sterile, white-walled chamber filled with advanced equipment designed to handle almost any biological anomaly. Yet, as Liam carefully laid the injured Violet woman onto the examination table, he couldn't help but feel unprepared. Her bioluminescent tendrils flickered weakly, casting soft, shifting patterns across the room. Despite her fragile state, there was an undeniable presence about her, a quiet strength that seemed at odds with her current vulnerability. "She's stable for now," Dr. Priya Patel announced after running a series of scans. "But her physiology is unlike anything we've encountered. Her body appears to be generating some kind of energy field. It's interfering with our instruments." Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on the alien figure before him. He had already decided to name her Silva, inspired by the way her glowing tendrils reminded him of sunlight filtering through trees. It felt strange assigning a human name to something so otherworldly, but it helped ground him in this surreal situation. Besides, she needed something familiar, something personal, to bridge the gap between their species. As Silva regained consciousness, her luminous eyes fluttered open, locking onto Liam's face. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, two beings separated by unimaginable differences, yet connected by shared trauma. Then, without warning, another wave of images flooded Liam's mind. This time, they were clearer. Towering cities made of crystalline structures, skies ablaze with unnatural colors. And then, sudden chaos. Explosions, screams, and a shadowy force consuming everything in its path. "She's trying to tell us something," Liam murmured, clutching his temples as the mental strain intensified. "It's like fragments of memories. She's showing me what happened to her people." Dr. Patel frowned, glancing at the monitors. "Her brain activity is off the charts. Whatever she's doing, it's taxing her system. We need to stabilize her before she collapses again." But Liam shook his head. "No, we can't stop her. If she's willing to risk herself to communicate, we owe it to her to listen." Over the next few hours, Liam worked tirelessly to decipher Silva's fragmented messages. Each memory came in bursts, disjointed and chaotic, but slowly, a narrative began to emerge. Her people, the Valeth, had once thrived as a highly advanced civilization, masters of manipulating cosmic forces. But their hubris led them down a dangerous path. In their quest for immortality, they had experimented with harnessing energy from collapsing stars. The experiment went horribly wrong, creating a sentient entity that consumed entire worlds, leaving devastation in its wake. "What is this thing?" Liam asked aloud, more to himself than anyone else. "Is it a weapon? A creature?" Silva responded by projecting a new image into his mind. A swirling mass of darkness dotted with countless pinpricks of light, like galaxies being devoured one by one. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming. Whatever this entity was, It wasn't just destructive. It was alive, intelligent, and relentless. Lieutenant Mara Klein entered the medical bay, her expression grim. Captain Morrells wants an update. And frankly, I'm starting to think this communication might be a trick. How do we know she's not manipulating you? Liam turned to face her, frustration etched on his face. Manipulating me? Look at her, Lieutenant. Does she look like someone plotting against us? She's scared, hurt, and desperate. If anything, she's trying to warn us. And if she's leading us into a trap, Klein countered, her voice sharp. We don't know enough about these aliens to trust them blindly. For all we know, she could be luring us closer to whatever destroyed her people. The argument hung heavy in the air, unresolved. Before Liam could respond, Silva let out a low, keening sound, a mournful vibration that resonated deep within the walls of the ship. Her tendrils reached out, brushing against Liam's arm. Another memory surged into his mind. A fleet of ships fleeing through space, pursued by the same shadowy force. This time, however, the vision included coordinates, a star system marked by 3 pulsars forming a perfect triangle. She's giving us a location, Liam said, his voice trembling with urgency. That's where it's coming from. That's where her people are heading, or were heading. Klein crossed her arms skeptically. Or maybe that's exactly where she wants us to go. Convenient, isn't it? Ignoring her skepticism, Liam relayed the information to Captain Morrells. The captain listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. If this is true, she said finally, then we're dealing with something far beyond our comprehension. But if it's false, following those coordinates could mean walking straight into a death trap. We don't have a choice, Liam insisted. If Silva's telling the truth, and I believe she is, then humanity needs to know what's coming. We can't afford to ignore this. After a tense discussion, Captain Morrells agreed to send a probe to investigate the coordinates while keeping Silva under close observation. Meanwhile, tensions aboard the Aegis continued to rise. Some crew members sided with Liam, believing Silva's warnings were genuine. Others, like Lieutenant Klein, remained suspicious, convinced that the Violet woman was using emotional manipulation to gain sympathy. Despite the growing divide, Liam focused on caring for Silva. Over time, he noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She became less reliant on physical contact, though she still sought his presence during moments of distress. Her bioluminescence grew steadier, and the memories she shared became less frantic, more coherent. Through trial and error, Liam discovered that speaking softly and maintaining eye contact helped calm her, an act of trust that transcended language barriers. One evening, as the ship drifted silently through the void, Liam sat beside Silva, watching the faint glow of her tendrils pulse rhythmically. For the first time since their encounter, he allowed himself to reflect on the enormity of what was happening. Here was an alien being, not just communicating with him, but forming a bond. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, a reminder of how small humanity truly was in the grand scheme of the universe. And yet, amidst the uncertainty, Liam found solace in one undeniable truth. No matter how different they might be, compassion was a universal language. Whether Silva's warnings would save humanity or doom it remained to be seen. But for now, he chose to believe in the possibility of hope. Little did he know, the hardest decisions were yet to come. Days turned into a week as Liam and the crew of the Aegis worked tirelessly to piece together Silva's fragmented messages. Each interaction with her brought new revelations, but also more questions. The Violet woman's memories were vivid yet incomplete, like shards of a shattered mirror reflecting only glimpses of a larger picture. Despite her growing trust in Liam, she remained guarded, her bioluminescent tendrils flickering erratically whenever certain topics arose. Liam spent most of his time in the medical bay, poring over data and trying to make sense of the images flooding his mind. With Dr. Priya Patel's help, he began cataloging each memory fragment. Towering crystalline cities reduced to rubble, fleeing ships consumed by an endless void, and a looming shadow that seemed alive, pulsating with hunger. But one detail stood out above all. The hunger, as Silva called it, wasn't just a destructive force. It was sentient, intelligent, and relentless. She says it's not evil, Liam explained during a briefing with Captain Morales and the senior staff. It doesn't destroy out of malice. It consumes because it's searching for something. For what? Lieutenant Mara Klein asked skeptically, leaning back in her chair. Her arms were crossed, her expression skeptical. Revenge, resources, or maybe just another excuse to wipe us out. No, Liam replied firmly. She says it's searching for identity. Whatever this thing is, it was created by her people, by the Veilith themselves. Their experiments to harness energy from collapsing stars went wrong, and instead of achieving immortality, they unleashed this abomination. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Humanity had always assumed alien civilizations would be benevolent or hostile, but never self-destructive. The idea that the Veilith had created their own doom was both horrifying and humbling. Captain Morales leaned forward, her sharp eyes narrowing. If this hunger is real, and if it's heading our way, we need to prepare. Have we received any updates from the probe sent to those coordinates? Priya shook her head. Nothing yet. The signal delay makes communication difficult, but we should have preliminary data within 48 hours. And until then, Klein interjected, her tone sharp. We sit here playing nice with an alien who might be leading us straight into danger. She's not leading us anywhere. Liam snapped, surprising even himself. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. Silva's trying to warn us. If we don't listen, we're no better than her people when they ignored the warnings before it was too late. Klein opened her mouth to argue, but Captain Morales raised a hand, silencing her. Enough. We'll proceed cautiously. Dr. Carter, continue working with Silva. Keep documenting everything she shares. And Lieutenant Klein, double security measures around the ship. If things escalate, I want us ready. As the meeting adjourned, Liam returned to the medical bay, his mind racing. Silva lay on the examination table, her glow dimmer than usual. She seemed to sense his frustration, her tendrils reaching out hesitantly. When he placed his hand near hers, she wrapped a single tendril around his wrist, sending a wave of reassurance through him. It was strange how natural this connection felt now, despite their differences. Over the next few days, Silva revealed more details about the hunger. Through flashes of memory, Liam learned that it wasn't bound by physical laws. It could traverse space and time, leaving trails of destruction wherever it went. Entire star systems had been wiped out, their planets stripped bare of life. Worse still, it seemed drawn to areas of high energy, meaning Earth's sun could make humanity's home a prime target. But there was another truth Silva struggled to convey, one far more personal. One evening, as Liam sat beside her, she projected a series of intense emotions: guilt, shame, and sorrow. Images of her colony ship fleeing through space flickered in his mind, followed by a vision of the hunger closing in behind them. Then came a chilling realization. Silva feared she might have led the entity directly to humanity. She thinks it's following her, Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. She believes making contact with us may have put Earth in danger. Dr. Patel, who had been monitoring Silva's vitals nearby, looked up sharply. That changes everything. If the hunger is tracking her energy signature, then we're sitting ducks. Klein finished, stepping into the room unexpectedly. She had been eavesdropping, her arms still crossed. I knew trusting her was a mistake. It's not her fault. Liam shot back, standing abruptly. She didn't ask for this. Her people were desperate, running for their lives. She's just trying to survive, like anyone else would. Klein rolled her eyes. Survival doesn't justify risking billions of human lives. Before Liam could respond, Silva let out a low, mournful sound, her bioluminescence flaring brightly. Her tendrils tightened around his arm, pulling him closer. Another memory surged into his mind. Her colony ship under attack, the hunger tearing through its defenses. Amidst the chaos, she had been separated from her companions, forced to flee alone. The pain of losing her people was palpable, raw, and unrelenting. Liam turned to Klein, his expression softening. She's not our enemy. She's a victim, just like we'll be if we don't find a way to stop this thing. For a moment, Klein hesitated, her usual stoicism wavering. Then she sighed, shaking her head. Fine. But if this goes south, don't say I didn't warn you. As Klein left the room, Liam focused on Silva, his heart aching for her. We'll figure this out, he said softly, though he wasn't sure whether she understood his words. I promise. Despite his determination, doubts lingered in the back of his mind. Was he doing the right thing by trusting her? Could humanity truly stand against something as vast and incomprehensible as the hunger? For now, all he could do was keep moving forward, one step at a time. Unbeknownst to everyone aboard the Aegis, the probe sent to investigate the coordinates was nearing its destination. What it discovered would change everything, for better or worse. The days aboard the Aegis grew heavier with each passing moment. The crew's initial excitement about first contact had given way to a tense atmosphere filled with suspicion and fear. Silva, the Veilith woman clinging to life in the medical bay, had become both a source of hope and division. Her presence stirred emotions that no one, not even Liam, was prepared to confront. Liam spent nearly every waking hour by her side, trying to unravel more of her story while tending to her injuries. Over time, their connection deepened in ways neither could have anticipated. It wasn't just the memories she shared or the telepathic impressions flooding his mind. It was something simpler, more primal. Silva sought comfort in his presence, often reaching out with her glowing tendrils when she felt overwhelmed. And Liam, despite himself, found solace in hers. In those quiet moments, surrounded by the hum of the ship and the soft glow of her bioluminescence, he felt less alone. But not everyone saw their bond as a sign of progress. Lieutenant Mara Klein watched from afar, her sharp eyes missing nothing. To her, Liam's growing attachment to Silva was reckless, a dangerous blurring of professional boundaries. She voiced her concerns openly during daily briefings, pointing out how much time Liam spent with the alien at the expense of other duties. You're letting your feelings cloud your judgment, Dr. Carter, Klein said one morning, her tone sharp and unyielding. This isn't some interstellar romance novel. We're dealing with an unknown threat here. It's not like that, Liam replied, though his cheeks flushed slightly under her scrutiny. Silva trusts me, and I trust her. That trust is what's keeping her alive and giving us vital information. Or so you say, Klein shot back. How do we know she's not manipulating you? For all we know, she's using your sympathy to buy time for whatever's coming. Captain Morales intervened before the argument escalated further. Enough. Both of you have valid points, but accusations won't get us anywhere. Dr. Carter, continue documenting everything Silva shares. Lieutenant Klein, maintain heightened security protocols. Until we hear back from the probe, we proceed cautiously. Despite the captain's orders, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some crew members began whispering behind closed doors, questioning whether Liam was fit to lead the xenobiology team. Others admired his dedication, seeing it as proof that humanity could rise above its fears and connect with the unknown. Meanwhile, Silva's condition improved steadily, thanks in part to Liam's relentless care. Her bioluminescence became brighter and steadier, and her movements regained fluidity. Yet there were still moments when she seemed distant, lost in memories too painful to share. During these times, Liam sat silently beside her, offering his presence without words. He didn't need to understand every detail of her past to know she was carrying unimaginable burdens. One evening, as the ship drifted silently through space, Silva reached out to Liam with unexpected urgency. Her tendrils wrapped tightly around his arm, pulling him close. A flood of emotions surged into his mind. Desperation, longing, and a profound sense of loss. Then came images, not of destruction this time, but of beauty. Rolling fields of luminescent plants, skies painted with shimmering auroras, and gatherings of violet sharing light and warmth. These were glimpses of her home before the hunger, a world now lost forever. "She's showing me who she was," Liam murmured, tears welling up in his eyes. Who they all were. Dr. Priya Patel, who had been monitoring Silva's vitals nearby, looked up in surprise. "That's remarkable. Most species would guard such intimate memories fiercely. Sharing them like this, it's a sign of immense trust. It's also a cry for help," Liam added softly. "She's not just warning us about the hunger. She's asking us to remember, to honor what she's lost." As the hours passed, Silva grew weaker again, her energy drained by the effort of communication. Concerned, Liam adjusted her medical equipment, ensuring she remained stable. But as he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that their time together was running out. Every memory she shared brought them closer to understanding the truth, but also closer to facing the inevitable. Back in the command center, Captain Morales reviewed updates from the probes sent to investigate the coordinates Silva had provided. Preliminary scans revealed anomalies consistent with Silva's descriptions: massive energy fluctuations, gravitational distortions, and traces of what appeared to be organic matter scattered across the region. Though inconclusive, the data suggested the hunger might indeed exist. "We'll need more concrete evidence before making any decisions," Morales said, addressing the senior staff. "Until then, we stay vigilant." Unbeknownst to the crew, however, events were unfolding faster than anyone realized. Late that night, as Liam rested briefly in the medical bay, Silva experienced a sudden psychic episode. Her body convulsed violently, her tendrils flaring with erratic bursts of light. Alarms blared as her vital signs spiked dangerously high, drawing the attention of the entire medical team. "What's happening?" Dr. Patel asked, rushing to stabilize her. "I don't know," Liam replied, panic rising in his voice. "It's like she's reliving something terrible." Through the chaos, Silva projected one final, overwhelming vision into Liam's mind. The hunger closing in on the Aegis, its shadowy form stretching across the void. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the episode subsided, leaving Silva unconscious and frail. When Liam finally caught his breath, he turned to Dr. Patel, his expression grim. "We're running out of time," he said quietly. "Whatever's coming, it's closer than we thought." As the crew scrambled to prepare for the worst, Liam stayed by Silva's side, holding her hand gently. Despite everything, the doubts, the risks, the looming threat, he knew one thing for certain. Abandoning her now would mean abandoning the fragile bond they had built, and in a universe filled with darkness, that bond might be their only beacon of hope. The air aboard the Aegis was thick with tension as the crew braced for what might come next. Silva's psychic episode had left everyone shaken, especially Liam. The vision she shared, of the hunger closing in on their ship, was etched into his mind like a scar. It wasn't just the sheer scale of the entity that terrified him. It was its intelligence, its purposeful movement through space, devouring everything in its path. For the first time since the mission began, Liam felt truly afraid, not just for himself, but for humanity. In the aftermath of the episode, Captain Morales called an emergency meeting in the command center. The room buzzed with nervous energy as the senior staff gathered around the holographic display showing the probe's latest data. The anomalies were undeniable now. Massive energy signatures pulsating irregularly, gravitational waves distorting nearby star systems, and faint traces of organic matter scattered across vast distances. Whatever the hunger was, it was real, and it was heading straight for them. "We need to make a decision," Morales said firmly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Dr. Carter, give us your assessment. What are we dealing with here?" Liam hesitated, glancing at Silva's medical report displayed on a secondary screen. Her condition remained critical after the episode, and without her guidance, they were flying blind. Still, he knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. The hunger isn't just a force of destruction, Liam began, choosing his words carefully. It's a remnant of the Vailith themselves, a creation born from their experiments to transcend mortality. According to Silva, it consumes not out of malice, but because it's searching for something, or someone. Searching for what? Lieutenant Klein asked sharply, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Another meal. A new galaxy to wipe clean. No, Liam replied, shaking his head. It's searching for identity. The Vailith tried to create immortality, but instead they unleashed this thing. It has no sense of self, no purpose beyond consumption. And now it's drawn to high-energy sources, like Earth's sun. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. If the hunger reached Earth, there would be no stopping it. Humanity wouldn't stand a chance against something so vast and incomprehensible. But why is it following us? Dr. Patil asked, breaking the silence. Surely it can sense more powerful energy sources elsewhere. It's following Silva, Liam admitted reluctantly, his voice barely above a whisper. She believed her presence led it here. When we made contact, we essentially painted a target on ourselves. Klein let out a bitter laugh. So much for trusting aliens. We opened the door, and now we're stuck holding the bag. That's enough, Morales snapped, slamming her fist on the table. Pointing fingers won't solve anything. Right now, our priority is survival. Dr. Carter, what options do we have? Liam took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to say. Silva mentioned one possibility before, but it's risky. She suggested amplifying her bioluminescent signals using the ship's communication array. The idea is to confuse the hunger, disrupt its ability to track us, or at least buy us some time. And what happens to her during this process? Klein demanded, her tone accusatory. Does she survive? Or does she burn herself out like a candle in the wind? Liam's jaw tightened. He didn't want to admit it, but Klein was right. Amplifying Silva's energy would drain her completely, and likely kill her in the process. Yet despite the cost, it might be their only hope. I don't know if she'll survive, Liam admitted quietly, but she's willing to try. She knows what's at stake. Morales leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as though trying to stave off a headache. This is insane. We're talking about sacrificing an intelligent being, one who trusted us, for the sake of survival. Is this really who we are? Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The bridge lights flickered as a series of warning alerts flashed across the monitors. The probe had detected movement near the coordinates Silva provided. An immense shadow spreading across the void, heading directly toward the Aegis. It's here, Klein said flatly, her face pale. Whatever it is, it's coming. Captain Morales wasted no time issuing orders. Prepare evasive maneuvers. Divert all power to shields and engines, and get me a status update on Silva. As the crew scrambled to follow her commands, Liam rushed back to the medical bay. Silva lay motionless on the examination table, her glow dimmer than ever. But when he approached, her tendrils twitched weakly, reaching out to him. Another wave of emotions flooded his mind. Resignation, determination, and a quiet plea for forgiveness. She knows, Liam whispered, clutching her hand tightly. She knows what needs to be done. Together with Dr. Patel, Liam worked quickly to prepare the equipment needed to amplify Silva's signals. Every second counted as the shadow loomed closer, its presence detectable even within the confines of the ship. Crew members exchanged panicked glances, unsure whether to trust the plan or abandon ship entirely. Finally, the setup was complete. Silva's fragile body was connected to the communication array via a network of biometric sensors. As Liam activated the system, her bioluminescence flared brightly, filling the room with radiant light. For a brief moment, she seemed almost alive again, her tendrils stretching outward as though embracing the universe itself. Then came the transmission, a symphony of colors and frequencies unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. The signal pulsed outward, reaching far beyond the ship and into the depths of space. On the monitors, the shadow slowed, its movements becoming erratic as though confused by the sudden influx of energy. "It's working," Pytel breathed, her eyes wide with awe. "The hunger. It's losing focus." But the victory was short-lived. As the signal intensified, Silva's body began to deteriorate rapidly. Her glow faded, her tendrils shriveling into lifeless strands. Tears streamed down Liam's face as he watched her sacrifice everything to protect them. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the transmission ended. The shadow retreated, dissolving into the void. Silence fell over the ship as the crew processed what had happened. Silva was gone, but her legacy remained. In her final moments, she had shown humanity the true meaning of courage and compassion. Now it was up to them to carry that torch forward. As Liam stood alone in the medical bay, staring at the empty examination table, he whispered a single promise. "We'll remember you." The silence that followed Silva's sacrifice was deafening. For a moment, the entire crew of the Aegis seemed frozen in time, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had just witnessed. The glowing tendrils that once illuminated the medical bay were now dark and lifeless, leaving behind an emptiness that felt almost tangible. Liam stood motionless beside the examination table, his hands trembling as he stared at the spot where Silva had lain only moments ago. Her final act, a beacon of light and energy strong enough to disrupt the hunger, had saved them all, but at a cost none could easily bear. Captain Morales entered the room quietly, her usual stern demeanor softened by grief. She placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, though she said nothing. Words felt inadequate in the face of such loss. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice low and steady. "Dr. Carter, we need to regroup. The crew is shaken, and we still don't know if this reprieve will last." Liam nodded numbly, struggling to pull himself together. He knew she was right. They couldn't afford to linger in mourning when danger might still be lurking nearby. But how could he move forward without feeling like he betrayed Silva? She had trusted him, relied on him, and now she was gone because of choices made under his guidance. The guilt weighed heavily on his chest, threatening to suffocate him. Back in the command center, the mood was somber yet tense. Dr. Potil analyzed the data from Silva's transmission, searching for any sign of the hunger's retreat. So far, it appeared the entity had been disoriented enough to halt its advance, but whether it would recover remained uncertain. "The signal disrupted its ability to track us," Paddle explained, pointing to fluctuating readings on the holographic display. "But these anomalies suggest it's not fully gone. It's retreating temporarily, regrouping. We may have bought ourselves some time, but it won't stay away forever." Lieutenant Klein paced anxiously, her hands clenched into fists. "So what's the plan? Run back to Earth and warn them, or stick around here waiting for it to come back?" Morales turned to face her, her expression resolute. "We're not running. Not yet. If there's even a chance we can learn more about this thing, we owe it to humanity to try. Dr. Carter, you've spent the most time with Silva. Is there anything else she shared that might help us understand it better?" Liam hesitated, his mind racing through the fragments of memories Silva had entrusted to him. There was one detail he hadn't mentioned before, a fleeting vision of the Valith attempting to fight the hungered using similar methods. They had tried amplifying their own bioluminescent signals to confuse it, but ultimately failed. What set Silva apart was her willingness to go further, to give everything she had left. "She believed the hunger feeds on energy," Liam said slowly, piecing together his thoughts. "But not just physical energy. It consumes identity, purpose, anything that defines life itself. That's why it targets civilizations, and why it keeps coming back, no matter how far you run." Patil frowned, leaning closer to the display. "If that's true, then our best defense isn't running. It's understanding. Maybe we can find a way to neutralize it rather than just delaying the inevitable." Klein scoffed. Neutralize it. With what? A bigger light show. Look where that got Silva. Enough. Morales barked, silencing the argument before it escalated. We're not debating ethics right now. Our priority is survival, for humanity, not just ourselves. Dr. Carter, I want you to review every piece of information Silva gave us. Leave no stone unturned. Lieutenant Klein, prepare the ship for immediate departure. We'll head toward the nearest star system while maintaining surveillance for any signs of the hunger. As orders were issued and preparations began, Liam retreated to his quarters, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to shut down, to retreat into solitude and process the enormity of Silva's sacrifice. But another part, the part that had bonded so deeply with her, felt compelled to honor her memory by continuing the fight. She hadn't died simply to buy them time. She had hoped they would use that time wisely. Hours later, as the Aegis accelerated towards safer territory, Liam returned to the medical bay. Though Silva was gone, traces of her presence lingered, faint imprints of her luminescence on the walls, residual warmth in the air. He sat down at the workstation and began reviewing the recordings of their interactions, searching for clues he might have missed. Then, buried deep within the data logs, he found something extraordinary, a fragment of Silva's consciousness embedded in the ship's systems. It wasn't alive, not in the traditional sense, but it pulsed faintly with the same bioluminescent energy she had emitted during her final moments. Using the universal translator, Liam managed to extract a single coherent message. Remember who you are. Do not let fear consume you. Tears welled up in Liam's eyes as the words resonated within him. Silva's plea wasn't just about defeating the hunger. It was about preserving humanity's essence, its identity. In sacrificing herself, she had given them more than just a fighting chance. She had shown them the importance of resilience, unity, and hope. When Lion shared the discovery with Captain Morales, her expression softened. She gave us more than we realized, Morales said quietly. Not just knowledge, but inspiration. We'll carry her message forward, to Earth and beyond. As the Aegis sped through the void, the shadow of the hunger still loomed large in their minds. But amidst the uncertainty, there was a newfound determination. Silva's sacrifice had reminded them of something vital. Even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could prevail, if only they were brave enough to nurture it. For now, the battle was far from over. But thanks to Silva, humanity had taken its first step toward salvation. The journey back to Earth was a somber one. The Aegis drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its crew burdened by the weight of what they had endured and lost. Silva's presence lingered in every corner of the ship, her sacrifice etched into their collective memory. For Liam, it was hardest of all. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her glowing tendrils reaching out to him, felt the warmth of her trust, and heard her final plea echoing in his mind. Remember who you are. Captain Morales called another meeting as they approached Earth's orbit. The senior staff gathered in the command center, their faces pale with exhaustion but resolute with purpose. They had survived the hunger, for now. But returning home meant facing an entirely different challenge, warning humanity about the threat that loomed beyond their borders. We've been analyzing the data from Silva's transmission, Dr. Piddle began, pulling up holographic projections of the probe's findings. While the hunger retreated temporarily, its energy signature is still detectable. It's regrouping, adapting. If we don't act quickly, it will come for us again. Lieutenant Klein crossed her arms tightly, her usual skepticism tempered by a newfound urgency. So what's the plan? Do we fortify Earth's defenses, evacuate entire populations, or do we try to develop some kind of weapon against this thing? No weapons, Liam interjected firmly, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. Silva showed us that fighting the hunger directly won't work. It consumes everything: energy, identity, purpose. Our best chance is to understand it, find a way to neutralize it without feeding its hunger. Morales nodded thoughtfully. Dr. Carter's right. This isn't just a military problem. It's a survival issue. We need to share Silva's message, not just with world leaders, but with everyone. Humanity must unite if we're going to stand a chance. As the Aegis entered Earth's atmosphere, news of their return spread rapidly. Media outlets buzzed with speculation. Governments scrambled to prepare statements, and protests erupted in major cities as people demanded answers. The crew disembarked under the watchful eyes of global authorities, their arrival marked by both awe and suspicion. Could they truly be trusted to deliver such monumental news? Liam found himself thrust into the spotlight, tasked with explaining the unimaginable. Standing before a panel of world leaders at the United Nations headquarters, he recounted their encounter with Silva, the Violet woman who had risked everything to warn them. He described the hunger not as a monster, but as a tragic mistake born from unchecked ambition. And he emphasized the lesson she had imparted, that fear and division would only hasten humanity's demise. She didn't just give us knowledge, Liam concluded, his voice trembling slightly. She gave us hope. She reminded us of our capacity to adapt, to grow, and to protect what matters most. If we want to survive, we can't let fear consume us. We have to remember who we are. His words resonated deeply, sparking debates across the globe. Some dismissed the threat as exaggerated, clinging to denial rather than confronting the unknown. Others embraced Silva's message, calling for unprecedented cooperation between nations to prepare for the inevitable. Research facilities sprang up overnight, dedicated to studying the anomalies detected near the hunger's coordinates. Engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce Earth's orbital defenses, while scientists explored ways to harness bioluminescent energy, inspired by Silva's final act. But Liam knew the real battle wouldn't be fought with technology or weapons. It would be fought within humanity itself. As days turned into weeks, he became an advocate for interspecies understanding, using Silva's story to inspire unity and caution. He traveled the world, speaking to crowds large and small, urging them to see the universe not as a place of isolation, but as a tapestry woven together by countless threads of life. In private moments, however, Liam allowed himself to grieve. He often returned to the medical bay aboard the Aegis, now docked in orbit around Earth, where faint traces of Silva's luminescence still clung to the walls. Sitting alone in the dim light, he reflected on their bond, a connection that transcended species, language, and even death. Though she was gone, her legacy lived on in every person touched by her courage. One evening, as Liam stared out at the stars from the observation deck, a soft hum filled the air. At first, he thought it was his imagination, a trick of memory haunting him. But then, faint streaks of light danced across the void outside, a shimmering aurora unlike anything he'd ever seen. For a moment, he swore he could feel her presence again, gentle and reassuring. "Thank you," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "We won't forget." Back on Earth, humanity faced challenges unlike any it had encountered before. Coastal regions flooded as climate patterns shifted dramatically, likely influenced by the hunger's gravitational distortions. Entire ecosystems collapsed, forcing billions to adapt to new realities. Yet amidst the devastation, there was resilience. Communities came together, sharing resources and knowledge. Innovations born from necessity transformed societies, proving that even in the darkest times, light could emerge. Decades later, historians would look back on this period as a turning point, a moment when humanity learned to see itself not as masters of the universe, but as stewards of a fragile existence. And though the shadow of the hunger still loomed in the distance, its approach slowed by humanity's growing understanding. People carried on with renewed determination. Liam never stopped searching for answers. Using fragments of Silva's consciousness embedded in the ship's systems, he continued decoding her memories, piecing together clues about the hunger's origins and weaknesses. His work inspired generations of scientists, philosophers, and explorers who dared to dream of coexistence rather than conquest. The tale ended not with triumph, but with hope. Humanity had been given a second chance, a gift wrapped in sacrifice and sealed with compassion. Silva's light may have faded, but her legacy burned brightly in the hearts of those who remembered her. And so, as the stars twinkled above a scared yet resilient Earth, Liam whispered one final promise to the universe. "You showed us how to survive wisely. Now, we'll make sure your light guides us forever."